And Hands is coming to you from a virtual room filled with heroes. Mark Sessler, Greg Rosenthal. What's up, boys?
Excited because it's not just the three of us today. That's why I'm excited.
More surprises.
Yes. In addition to these two heroes joining me today, we have another honorary hero of the Around the NFL podcast. Hit the theme song, Ricky.
606 buried this beat.
There's a wolf, there's a wolf, there's a wolf, can't blow your house down. There's a wolf, there's a wolf, there's a wolf, can't blow your house down. Don't mess with her, don't.
So long.
Don't do it, don't do it, stupid. Don't mess with her, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, stupid.
Colleen Wolfe, welcome back to the Around the NFL podcast.
Hello, I'm back, better than ever. What is up?
As always, your intro hello is a 78-year-old woman at bingo night in Atlantic City.
It's the character I feel most comfortable in.
It's
That's
your
why,
future.
I feel like a couple of the other songs. The one song that we did not choose is the Colleen anthem, where it's sort of an awkward woman playing puzzles and staring at plants. Like, I'm sorry, but I always thought that was a little bit more of the Colleen vibe than the excellent, but rather rough and tumble song we've just heard.
That other one's a little too on the nose, I think. It's a little too perfect. I gotta keep some street cred.
She contains multitudes. She's a little gangster, you know.
I'm a very layered person, yes.
Colleen, you are obviously such a busy and successful woman, and if you are not aware, you are if you're listening to the show, because she's the host of Thursday Night Football every week during the season, and it's coming up again on Thursday when the Jaguars and Dolphins tussle, and also, of course, Good Morning Football on the weekends. And she's squeezed in the old ATN podcast, and that's very nice of you. So thank you. We appreciate it.
Listen, anything for you guys. This is easy and comfortable, and I'm just so glad to hang out with my friends again.
I mean, we gave you airtime when the rest of the company wasn't. It's loyalty.
You were the first. You guys were my first, and I'll always remember it.
Hey now. All right, so Connie is with us, and that's great because we have so much to get to. Tuesday shows obviously very busy during the regular season. We have the Thursday night preview, which is perfect with Colleen joining us. I'm sure you've been in your binder all week already.
Yep.
Getting ready for the big AFC showdown this weekend. We are going to, now with 2 weeks, 2 games in the books for every team in the league, we look around the landscape. We're going to deliver some pep talks to those in need, Mark. And I know this is one of those certain assignments on this podcast I feel like Mark will embrace and really, truly connect with. So I'm really looking forward to finding out who you plan to speak with and send your message to.
Well, I mean, I could use a pep talk myself on what to do with the 2 children that are in my house 24 hours a day without ceasing. But I've got a few prepared for various NFL characters that I think need a little kick in the buttocks, Dan.
In the old buttocks. Sizzler and I were privately texting before the show about, which one of us will end up divorced because of COVID-19. This meteor strike on the family structure, which is twisting everyone into a pretzel. It's certainly not healthy, but so far through 9% of the season, 6% of the season, still standing.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's as much as we can say. I mean, it's hard not to dream of quiet rooms off in the distance somewhere with just sunlight through a window and a bookshelf. But that's
Greg.
That's about 16 years from now, or it's Greg. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to do that. But before we give out our pep talks, let's talk about a little Monday Night Football. Yeah. Monday Night Football is the best kind of football. Yeah. The Raiders own Monday night. My neighbor Rich, who unfortunately can hear everything I say on the show, right before we started, came right up to the window where I have my setup here and taped it on a piece of paper in black magic marker. Raiders own Monday night. Raiders fans next door. And they certainly did. They own the Saints at the Death Star in Vegas, the debut for that fine stadium, 34-24. You heard Jalen Richard and Kevin Harlan with a call for Westwood 1. Derek Carr, 28 of 38, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, easily outplaying Drew Brees, who once again is going to be the subject of much conversation, you feel like, ahead of the Saints' next game against the Packers. Colleen, the Raiders are not a team a lot of people picked to be a big difference maker in 2020, but so far so good, 2-0 right now.
They've been looking good. I mean, when this game first started, I definitely did not think that this was going to go the Raiders' way. At the end of the first quarter, the Raiders had 15 passing yards. They took 3 sacks for a loss of 23. Things just didn't seem to be going their way at all. And then all of a sudden, Derek Carr just started to heat up. And the way that he was able to spread the ball around to 11 different pass catchers, Darren Waller looked so good in this game. I mean, this was the Darren Waller show. I mean, 12 catches, 103 yards, a touchdown. He was an absolute nightmare for the Saints defense. And we even had a Zay Jones spotting, which, hey, I was here for that because, like, that's really when the momentum really started to shift in that game.
Zay Jones shout out. You're right. They're getting contributions from a lot of guys. Nelson Aguilar's made key plays for them in back-to-back weeks. And I watch this team, and I think this is Gruden's vision. He is loving this. If nothing else, he has a way of running an offense that's very different than the rest of the NFL. It's very heavy. It's very slow-moving. It's long drives. It's 45 tight ends, including Jason Witten. It's fullbacks. And in back-to-back weeks, against these defenses who have kind of built themselves, the Saints included, to stop the pass. They've got 5 or 6 defensive backs. They have worn out defenses by the end of these 2 games. And when they were at their best last year, that's the kind of offense they were playing. They are a very good offensive team with a good offensive line. If they get their defense together at some point, then you start thinking about them as even a little more dangerous.
Well, I don't think their defense would be the same if Jonathan Abram misses any time. One thing about the Raiders, Josh Jacobs 2 weeks in a row is that guy. And I just think that he is like a John Gruden dream. I get why John Gruden pointed out the Walter Payton comparison. It's not that they look the same on the field, but then at the end of the game, when you see Josh Jacobs strutting up the sideline with that smile on his face, I mean, he just wants to be part of every play. I think he's completely changed as a pass catcher, and they looked really dangerous down the stretch. I was a little annoyed at the Raiders out of the gate when they deferred and allowed the Saints to get the ball first, because like you can't open your stadium with Drew Brees potentially marching down the field and having the first trivia question ever about that stadium being that, like, you know, Alvin Kamara scored the first touchdown. Instead, it was Will Lutz. That was a little thing that annoyed me. But the Raiders, man, you could feel them at the mid, like that when they picked off Brees, and we can get into Brees in a second, an undrew Brees-like interception, you could feel that game turning. And the Raiders are one of these teams that if they can continue to get performances like that, they are right in the mix for the 6th or 7th playoff spot.
I released the latest power rankings this morning. Had the Raiders at 15, which means I don't really know what to do with them. I don't know if I see them as really a top team in the AFC. I don't think so. But they're frisky, and they're a team that seems to be coming together. I liked what you said, Greg, about their offense, how it just feels different. You kept, especially early on, there was an especially bad series where Carr was holding the ball too long. He missed the receiver downfield. He took a couple coverage sacks, and it was just like, they just make something a little bit more exciting. But then you look up, and they have 34 points and score on 6 of their final 7 possessions. And Darren Waller, man, I mean, and I include myself in this, even though you may not believe it. I don't respect anyone's opinion more than Bill Belichick when it comes to assessing talent in our league. And he said this today during his availability. It's been a long time since we've seen a guy like this. And I would assume he's referring to Darren Waller's insane athleticism. speed that no linebacker can cover, no safety can cover. And to me, he jumped out as the guy. He's not Antonio Brown. They're different players, different positions. But what John Gruden and Mike Mayock wanted from Antonio Brown, which is this guy that's a nightmare matchup that dictates how the defense has to play and get them out of their comfort zone. That's what he did to the Saints on Monday night.
He's just faster, Waller is, than like the competition, and they need speed. I mean, they have speed. That's why they're just coming together, because we really haven't seen Henry Ruggs do his thing. Brian Edwards made a few plays. He forced a penalty last night, but there are pieces there. I do think this is a top 10 offense. I thought so coming into the year. I think it's going to be that way. Carr can make even pretty laid-back guys go a little crazy. I was listening to the Westwood One call. By the way, Kurt Warner and Kevin Harlan. I mean, there's a lot of great TV crews, but I think that's the number one game crew in the business right now. They just happen to be. They just happen to be on the radio. They're so good. And Warner was going crazy of the throws Carr wasn't making. But by the end of the game, he was like, you know what? I'm pretty hard on Derek Carr. And, Derek Carr would certainly have blocked Kurt Warner if he was listening to him on the radio. But he's like, you got to admit, by the end of the game, you look at what they've done, and that's the offense that Gruden wants to run. It's not that different than the offense the old Raiders and the Buccaneers used to run, too. It's not super entertaining all the time, but right now, and especially in today's NFL, I think it's tough to prepare for them because they are so different and they are so physical compared to other teams. And the Saints defense, I was big on this secondary, big on this defense, and they pretty much got wiped out.
Colleen, I want to tee you up on this. The Saints have a lot to clean up, over 100 yards in penalties for the second straight week. But you get a feeling Sean Payton, the talent there, the track record, they'll get on the same page eventually. Do you think it's time to sound the alarms on Drew Brees, who was uncharacteristically erratic with his accuracy yesterday on top of the week 1 game where he couldn't really move the ball?
It's definitely 2 bad back-to-back weeks for Drew Brees, but I think this week, them not having Michael Thomas out there. I mean, Alvin Kamara, he still looked good, but obviously they need more than just him. It can't just be the Alvin Kamara show out there. So Drew Brees, I think, you have to be a little concerned at this point that we're not seeing what we should be seeing out of him, because it was like Derek Carr put up the numbers that Drew Brees should have last night.
I mean, it's another game where, you look at Brees, his average depth of target is just over 5 yards. The vast majority, and this was obviously true with Michael Thomas too, the vast majority of yardage that he's gaining is coming after the catch. It's a different type of quarterback that they have to play around. Like Luke, my son, became a Saints fan a year ago, and my concern was like, well, you kind of jumped on this one a little late in the game. Had you been born earlier, that might have been more profitable for you. But he asked last night, like, why does Drew Brees look so sad? And I thought, on a micro level, it's because you're losing to the Raiders on Monday Night Football and you're frustrated. But like on a macro level, like there was something in the eyes of Brees that kind of threw me down the stretch. Like you can kind of
looking in the eyes.
Well, you've seen this with Peyton Manning too, like in that last year. And I mean, first of all, small sample size. Let's see what happens with Drew Brees. But there are concerning, distressing signals out there. We're seeing it on the field. And I thought that there was a look in the eyes of Drew Brees last night that sort of knew something's changed here. It's not the end, but something's changed, and he maybe shares a little bit of the concern that we share.
Well, because he had there was no
exact
pass rush.
thing.
You did,
like
and
he went just by looking at his face.
It makes me think about retirement. Remember, he almost considered retirement, and players always say like once you think about it, you're already there. What did you see, Colleen, last night?
No, I just the same thing that Sessler did. There was one shot in particular of Drew Brees' face that you could see it was written all over his face. It was just pure dejection, I guess. Like he looked so sad in the moment.
Time for that Viking funeral. Just put him on the wooden raft now and push him out into the Gulf of Mexico. Start firing those arrows, dipped in kerosene.
They've got Jameis Winston sitting there. I love I loved Patrick's tweet where he said we're like 4 weeks away from Brees coming down with a mysterious injury and Winston getting a little bit of a test drive. Wow, that would be something.
I mean, listen, that would be wild. And I think our boy Dat Boy Wolfe, the #1 Saints fan on Twitter, pointed out that Winston had a killer training camp and And, you also have, of course, Taysom Hill, the $21 million man who really has not been involved with the offense too much through 2 weeks. Sean Payton is a guy that is, if they continue to struggle, you imagine it's going to be hard for him not to think about mixing things up or perhaps making a big change. But it still feels a little premature, especially with Michael Thomas out. Emmanuel Sanders had a bad game yesterday. He's obviously not
2 straight. He's a problem.
There.
Traquan Smith is their number 1 receiver.
Yeah,
That's a little
he
bit
was
of a
the
problem.
beneficiary of all that.
So the Saints have a lot of work to do, both in strategy and play and discipline. And now they got the Packers, so that's going to be a game to look forward to. Colleen?
Wait, quick question. What were your thoughts on the yellow ABC Sports jackets that the guys in the booth were wearing? Because I loved them, and I think that ATN guys should have their own version of it.
Ooh.
Well, I like the second part of that a lot.
I know.
I like it. The podcast budget for NFL media is surprisingly small, so I don't think they're going to really shell out for jackets. But maybe we could do a
Something to
dumpster
think
dive.
about.
I like the thought. I like the thought, and I did like overall Monday Night Football. I really do like Brian Griese. I know, Greg, you had some issues with their late game calls because you grade on a curve with that stuff. But I thought Griese did a nice job. Lewis Riddick, they got to turn up his mic or something. I don't know. I can't even hear that guy.
He needs to turn up his fire. We've seen it on Twitter, and I think that it is fair to expect reps. I like the booth in week 2. I will say one thing. I don't need Brian Griese telling me over and over, like, you've got to respect this player. You've got to respect the way that he handles. It's like, that part of it, I will decide.
Did he use similar language when you confronted him at a bar in Denver when he was boozy at age 23 in the future of the Broncos quarterback?
I've wiped that off the slate. I've wiped that off the slate. We had an encounter that I honestly I deduct no points from him at this point. I could have points deducted from my slate. No. Like, I am with Dan that I think that at least Griese is he is working hard to fit with Levy and working hard to,
Well, they've worked together. They have chemistry. They did college together.
I thought it was a fine start.
The game management side. It was just they were surprised by the whole decision to kick the field goal at the end, but they didn't even discuss it until Carlson was like kicking it. That's one where it's just, in theory, it's reps, but Tony Romo's talking about whether that's happening or not 3 plays before, getting ready, talking about the strategy. What did you guys think about the Death Star, though? I thought it was like there was a couple fascinating things about it, but one of them was that Mark Davis is refusing to go to the games and because fans aren't allowed, like in solidarity with the fans. Like, that's amazing.
I love this guy.
Meanwhile, his mom is there lighting the torch for his dad in this stadium that's like the culmination of Raiders history. They've never been able to build their own stadium in the history of the team, and here they are. But he's like, "No, I'm not going. I'm one of the fans, and this is BS." So I don't know. I kind of like it.
Mark's his own type of dude.
Well, also he could have a smattering of fans in there. They opened the bars up in Las Vegas at midnight the night before. I mean, they want there to be an environment. But Mark Davis, I think, because he can't top Al Davis in any category at all. So why not be, I'm the dude that is so linked with this fan base that I'm not going to allow any fans in here because I'm not going to pick the better of you or the East or West Coast elite crew of the Raiders. You're going to come in as a group next year, and I'm going to come in with you. I mean, it's a bit of posturing, but I kind of like it.
Mark Davis is one of one. There is no other owner remotely like him. And give Mark Davis this. When he took over the reins, and I remember a particularly stinging column by Mike Silver, our own Mike Silver, who's now was then with Yahoo, that made Mark Davis seem like he would be someone that would never be fit to be the leader of a franchise. But Mark Davis has this team set up in Vegas in a beautiful stadium that I think is going to work. I feel like this Vegas, and I feel for the fans in Oakland, of course, but I feel like this Vegas Raiders connection is going to be a waterfall of money. And the franchise, if you just look at it financially, I would imagine the value of that franchise has already doubled since Mark Davis became the owner. So maybe Mark Davis, maybe he got a pep talk along the way that led him down this path because I think he's been an effective owner.
I mean,
he's got a team going in the right direction too.
That takes so much self-control to not go to that game if you're Mark Davis. I can't believe he was able to do that, because watching it on TV, I wanted to be there. I wanted to go. Like, imagine if we weren't in a pandemic, because that would be awesome. But that aside, if we were operating under normal circumstances, that place would be the biggest party. And we were supposed to be there for Thursday Night Football, which I am doubly upset about, because come on, like, let's take a group trip to Vegas, watch a game, and then go out. It sounds so much fun.
With
Well, you
Steve
get to be in
Smith.
Studio B, so that's okay. I mean, I think that's equal.
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying.
I
My only
appreciate
knock-
Colleen. I appreciate Colleen when you bring the energy, because you're all by yourself in that gigantic studio. I saw you doing one of the post games. It wasn't Thursday. I think it was a Monday Night Football, and you were just like hooting and hollering, and you were doing pumped fists. And I was like, "That's it. You're trying to bring your own energy because you're in this cavern." That's a professional move right there.
Let me tell you, it is not an easy thing to do, but I
You're
will
a pro.
continue to do it all season.
That's why you're like on every 40 under 40 list out there in the game when it comes to media personalities. Colleen Wolfe, we found her first though. Don't you ever?
That's right.
We discovered Colleen, not Philadelphia.
I owe everything to you guys.
By the way,
Everything
one
I
knock.
did.
One knock, my only knock on the Death Star, or the Big Owl, which has also been called. I need real fire for that flame. I don't want
yes.
that digital
Yeah.
stuff. I understand you
Yeah,
probably
that's fair.
can't, because the way the place is structured, and probably healthy, building codes and all that stuff. But we need the flame, man. All right.
Yeah.
All right. That's Monday Night Football. Remember, Thursday, our podcast, we're going to go through every game in the NFL, and we'll get you caught up to date on all the injuries and news around each team. So stay tuned for that. But for right now, it is time now to give out some pep talks. And now the pep talks that we're going to give, it's just to get everyone in the right headspace. You are talking directly to that person. You're going to have to use your imagination, imagine where this is, what the setup is. But ultimately, the listeners and even the three of us who are not yakking just have to imagine this to be a one-on-one, closed-door conversation between two people. So here comes pep talks. They could be positive for someone that's thriving right now. They could be negative for someone that's struggling. It's up to the person, and we don't know who we chose. Each of us, Colleen, as the guest of honor, why don't you get us going with the first pep?
Okay. Here we go. This one goes out to all the healthy ACLs around the league. Come on in here. Take a knee.
Nicely
Listen.
done.
I know this was a tough week. It was really scary watching so many ligaments tear. I mean, ligaments we all look up to, ligaments that really have built this league, leaders in this league. But maybe that left you feeling a little more vulnerable than usual. But now is not the time for fear, all right? You got to stay strong. Knees everywhere are counting on you guys. What are knees without ACLs? They are nothing. Just a cap and some bones. I mean, you literally hold everything together. And sure, modern medicine is a marvel, and finally rewatching all the Schitt's Creeks that your legs desire sounds really great, but you got to keep going. We need you to stay positive. We need you to stay flexible. So the
Stay
next
intact.
time I ask, what's poppin', it better not be you.
Wow.
Ended with a bang. Love it.
Listen, that is a broadcaster right there. Colleen, you said it so well. And I'll just a quick, I'm going to jump piggyback on this. MCLs, PCLs, you guys
Yeah.
keep up the good fight too.
Sure.
Yeah. Everybody's on
ligaments.
notice.
There's some sneaky ones out there. The Cortland Sutton ACL
Oh.
is news that broke since we last taped, and suddenly that Broncos team that just started their season 7 days ago, and it was like, wow, they've got 1 million exciting young players, and now they all seem, or at least Locke and Sutton, are wiped away. It's rough.
How many
It's so
how many how many bottles of brown stuff has John Elway put down since Sunday night? I mean,
Well, the answer is
A few-
always over under of 12. So I'm going to go
I was gonna
over this time.
say a couple right before they
Win or
signed
loss?
Blake Bortles. I mean, it's like Bortles. It's funny. Bill Barnwell he's been a Drew Lock criticizer, kind of like you were. Maybe a doubter, Dan. And he thought Lock showed some young Bortles like tendency where you look past certain things, and now that the actual Bortles is there to possibly replace him. Jeff Driscoll's kind of like the dollar store Bortles. It's just a room full of Bortles.
We have a room
kind of
full
a
of
nightmare.
heroes. John Elway has a room full of Bortles, and he could have avoided it if he just had a little bit more foresight. Greg,
Okay.
who's your pep talk with?
Wow. We're only gonna do one, huh? I'm gonna do it to a guy out in Green Bay, and his name is Jordan Love, and he's sitting there and he's probably wondering what is my place in the world, and I'm there. I'm here to talk to you, Jordan, and say, enjoy the ride. You just watched the 6th team in NFL history gain over 1,000 yards in the first 2 weeks. That's pretty awesome. Tim Boyle. He's not going to be there forever. At some point, you can probably beat out Mr. Boyle, rise up to number 2 on the depth chart. And more importantly, you have a front row seat for Aaron Rodgers in a vengeance tour that somehow you unwittingly caused. I don't think there's any bad feelings. He's been through this before. But he's only 36 years old. So another thing to think about, he's only about 4 years away from when Tom Brady won his last MVP. You can wait that out. Who really wants to play football anyways? Like, there's CTE.
Okay.
There's ACL stuff.
Knees.
Right. All sorts of ACL stuff.
Yep.
Right. Green Bay. Great karaoke bars. You can't go to them right now, but you can get to them like eventually. You're gonna get comfortable.
Wait, Green Bay has great karaoke bars? That is total news to me.
I heard that from Aaron Rodgers himself on the Kyle Brandt
Wow.
podcast.
There you go.
Which was really great. Everyone should check out that Aaron Rodgers interview. But Jordan Love, hey, it could be 4 or 5 years, but just look at Aaron Rodgers. Look at what happened to him when he waited. Look at Jimmy G. Yeah, that took a while, but eventually he got saved by Kyle Shanahan. You will find your time, Jordan Love. Just wait.
I like you giving a motivational speech to probably one of the great motivators out there. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers that we're seeing today exists. If they didn't go and annoy Aaron Rodgers, because he certainly seems like the type of person that once you annoy him, he doesn't just and he's one of these, hey, let's sleep on it and wake up, let's go to bed happy, we never go to bed upset. No, he goes to bed upset, and he's gone to bed upset, I think, about Love from the minute they took him. And so Love's done his job of playing master motivator, so that was fair for you to give him a speech in return. Very kind of you.
Yeah. Really, any success that the Packers have is going to be because of Jordan Love. Is what you're saying.
This is so great. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, and it's all kind of predictable. He has the Packers over a barrel, and he knows it, and I think he's relishing this. When he pours his, what does he say, 3 fingers worth of whiskey himself at the end, or scotch at the end of another successful Sunday, he knows not only is he getting his reputation back as one of the best quarterbacks in the league, the way the season has started, but he's also getting vindication for all that rage he had within him about the first-round pick being a quarterback, because now the Packers, if he keeps this up, are an impossible situation where they'll have to make a decision.
Well, here's what's possible. Go win some Super Bowls and make some Super Bowls like Tom Brady did at 39, 40, 41.
Well,
it's not so bad for the Packers.
Is that what he needs to do, though? Because I get the feeling if he puts together an all-pro season, sandwich prop alert, they will have to keep him on board. They will almost definitely have to keep him on board, whether or not they do get to the Super Bowl, because it's very hard to win a Super Bowl.
You are right, Dan, but I would call this for the Green Bay fans, this is their version of a problematic quarterback scenario. It's like, what do we do? Our starter is playing at an MVP level, but we have a first-round talent sitting behind him. It's like, why don't you do what you've done the last 406 years in Green Bay, is just pass it off from one Hall of Famer to the next. It'll be some time before I lose sleep over how the Green Bay Packers fan base is dealing with
It must be so
any of this.
difficult for them, really.
There is one, if you're Jordan Love, the old adage, stay ready, kid. Because Aaron Rodgers, for all his greatness, isn't a total Iron Man. He's been injured from time to time, and that really is where Jordan Love will likely get his shot, because it doesn't seem like it's going to come out of training camp as, we've decided you're the starter and we're trading Aaron Rodgers. It might be he's going to get a brief audition to really put the thought in the minds of that front office and the bearded boy, Matt LaFleur. All right. Mark Sessler.
I love to be able to motivate and speak words of motivation to someone that I genuinely like. I may actually love this person. and I know I'm not alone in this room. The person is Anthony Lynn. All right? I think Anthony Lynn is one of the more enjoyable Hard Knocks presences that I can remember, and it had to do with everything going on this summer on that team, but the way he handled it, and the more I learned about him, the more I thought, I like this guy's old school vibe, and he's kind of perfect. There's teams out there that need the old school dude. Gruden, you could put in that group, and you can see that it's working. I think it can work for Los Angeles too. But there comes a time where every coach needs to look inward and make a change on how they've viewed the world, probably since they were a player. A lot of these coaches get their coaching philosophies from the coaches that coached them when they were on the field. And I think there's nothing wrong with Anthony Lynn wanting to look around the league and say, what we're going to do is we're going to destroy people with the run game. We're going to run the ball 108 times a week if we want to. But here's the problem. Fate, the football gods, have spoken. They've entered the scene. They're on stage now. They weren't a week ago. Tyrod Taylor, who is chosen by the football gods to play this role over and over, and we really like Tyrod Taylor, the person, suddenly in the hospital after an injection. You can't write this stuff.
What was that
okay?
all about?
Right. So Justin Herbert gets on the field. I thought this is the last rookie quarterback I want to see playing right now. He doesn't seem ready. Instead, he's totally ready. We all saw the game. We saw what they can do. And Anthony Lynn, I love you, but you can't talk about what the plays that Herbert left on the field, that there was more to do, that Tyrod Taylor gives you a better chance to win. Tyrod Taylor gives you a better chance to score 13 points. Love him, but you have no idea what the ceiling is with Justin Herbert. And he can change this team. He can change your career, Anthony Lynn, forever. If you simply say, I'm going to walk into the future unknown. I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to see what happens, but it might be exciting, and it might flip the switch on a team that needs to galvanize hearts in Los Angeles. How do you do it? I'm sorry, but you don't do it through Tyrod Taylor. You do it through Justin Herbert, and you do it through going 11-5 and making the playoffs with the next great rookie quarterback story.
I love it. I'm totally with you, Mark. It makes me think of my favorite song, Ricky Hollywood, on the new T-Swift album, track 1. I'm doing good. I'm on some new shit. Been saying yes instead of no. That's what Anthony Lynn has to do. He has to change his mindset because he wants to be loyal to his guy, because he loves everything about Tyrod Taylor, and especially coming off that offseason with everything that was happening in the world, not just in the NFL. Taylor was a rock in that locker room, and there's loyalty there, and Lynn is an old school dude. But you just got to say yes. You got to say, you know what? I need, like Mark said, to open up my chance of being more successful. And Tyrod Taylor is just, he is a progress stopper, to use the old Parcellsism, in that room. I don't know, Colleen, if we could just assume Justin Herbert's going to be a 300-yard passer every game and he's locked and loaded. I'm sure once teams have tape to study on him, he's going to have some really bad games too. And maybe he'll be so bad that they have to go back to Tyrod Taylor. That's not out of the range of outcomes on this. But for right now, it's like this makes too much sense not to follow this path.
No, especially the fact that if it's true that he just found out that he was going to start like moments before the game, right during the pregame. I mean, this was a surprise for him. This was a surprise for the defense. And I think that's why he ended up playing so well too, because they didn't have any tape on him. They weren't expecting him at all. But I just feel so awful for Tyrod Taylor.
Right,
I thought for sure that this was going to be the year for him. He gets got every single place that he's at. I mean, whether it's in Buffalo. I was at that TNF game for the Browns against the Jets when Baker Mayfield made his debut because Tyrod got hurt. And now this time, I mean, you think about the freak nature of it, about having an adverse reaction to the shot that he got. I mean, this is something that just feels like it's a dark cloud that has followed Tyrod around his entire career. And Justin Herbert could not have looked better.
Well, we'll find out Sunday. I mean, I do, before I judge Anthony Lynn too harshly about this, want to see what he actually does with his actions, not his words. Not that he isn't always a straight shooter, but he made it clear Tyrod Taylor is their starter as long as he's 100%. It's like, who's 100%? So does that give him some wiggle room?
It should, yeah.
To see what Herbert looks like this week, and then truly make the decision after that. I don't know. I feel for him. I wish I had a drink. You know, we could play an ATN drinking game. I wish I had a drink for every time Mark said we respect Tyrod as a person before completely burying him, because I would have had a
Love
drink.
that qualifier.
I would have had a drink for every show going back to about like mid-August. But Lynn was pretty aggressive, just saying like, in case I missed it, we lost the damn game, and pointing out all the Herbert mistakes in that game, which was an interesting tact. He's definitely going with some tough love there, but you get the sense he has one message for the media, and I think he's probably a little different behind closed doors with Herbert.
Real quick on why I feel that way about Tyrod Taylor, because I actually kind of liked him when he was the Bills quarterback, and I like the idea of what I think he was back when that was like 5 years ago. But 99% of what I know about Tyrod Taylor is liking him on 9 episodes of Hard Knocks. Where you're getting to know the person. And it's not true of a lot. I don't know the person for a lot of these other guys. But so I say that, but then I do have to follow it up with the fact that, like, I think that as a society, we get over the idea of Tyrod Taylor being benched probably about 14 hours from now. Yes, I'd feel bad for him, but, like, this is football, and suddenly if the Chargers have, like, a high-ceiling, interesting rookie quarterback, like, people aren't going to be not showing up to Chargers games or turning them on because Tyrod Taylor's not starting.
And, like, I remember Prison Mike on The Office. Like, Tyrod Taylor's like, you got a good life. If Tyrod Taylor gets benched, he's still, things are okay for Ty God.
He's going to be a backup quarterback for the next 7 years, and he's a great one. Like, even if he doesn't get starting jobs, he's going to be getting checks for a long time.
I like, Mark, that because you're the master of just throwing random numbers out there. You said you liked Tyrod Taylor in 9 episodes of Hard Knocks. He was actually in 10 episodes between the Browns and the Chargers. I want to know if you hated him in the other episode.
No, I'm going to be completely transparent. I ghosted the last episode of Chargers-Rams because life was getting too hot. And I was like, I'll watch this. And then suddenly week 1 happened. It's like, when week 1 happens, Hard Knocks feels like it's from ancient Egypt. It literally has no relevance. So it's gone,
I could give you like a real like data point to back that up, that writing the Hard Knocks reviews for NFL.com, my mentions on the show for episodes 1 and 2 are up here, and then by the time I post that last episode that airs Tuesday, 2 days before week 1, nobody cares. It's actually, I would imagine it's a frustration for the Hard Knocks producers, because they put a lot of effort into sticking the landing in the final
best episode often, because it's all the cuts.
Tying it all together. But it's almost like by episode 5, it's already served its purpose and the world moves on. But again, let's not play too many violins there either. It's a nice show. Everybody's employed there.
It's like HBO execs like smoking cigars, making $14 million a year.
7,000 Emmy awards.
I will say, though, from watching Hard Knocks, I was kind of surprised the way that Justin Herbert came out, because, look, I know that he is obviously a really good quarterback, but just from watching Hard Knocks, I was like, oh, he's really quiet. He's kind of humble. He's like a little soft-spoken. I just didn't expect that play to match his personality, but it clearly does.
I'm also surprised, like, he's halfway to a medical degree and wants to be a doctor after he's done playing. And, like, he won the National Heisman Academic Award for the entire country as, like, the best student athlete.
Greg,
he's very cerebral.
Greg, what did you just say?
What?
Yeah, earlier you said, once a guy thinks about retirement, it's already over. Well, what about that?
There you go.
It's time to hang him up.
All right, my pep talk will be, it's going to be a circle back to Derek Carr, quarterback of the undefeated Las Vegas Raiders. Before the season, you may remember, Carr said he was sick of people not giving him respect. Okay, so Derek, after Monday night's win, he talked about your arrival in Vegas and how Tom Brady was the guy that was getting some love. In fact, let's listen to what Derek had to say in his post-game thoughts. Okay, so Derek, they're never going to believe in you, kid. You lived your whole childhood. Actually, Ricky, can we get some explosions in the sky, like Friday Night Lights music, but not explosions in the sky because we don't have the clearance? Kind of like explosions in the sky? Okay, we're covered. Mark Brady's like, must double check.
We'll get an email about that comment.
You lived your childhood and adolescence as a little brother, and now they, capital T, want to keep you in that box. But you're nobody's little brother anymore here in our league. You're a man, is what you are. A big, bright, shining star. Maybe not a star. Maybe you'll never be Mahomes or Lamar or Deshaun or Mr. Unlimited. But you're Derek. You're Derek. Repeat after me. I am Derek. I am Derek. I am Derek. 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 Derek.
Are we supposed to be playing along? Are we supposed to be Derek here?
You can't make them love you, but they can't hurt you. In the words of the great Chuck Pagano, they can fire you, they can't eat you. Just keep doing what you're doing, and they won't be able to deny you either.
Wow. Powerful.
I mean that. I know Derek Carr is not a superstar. You know I've been pounding this drum for a few years on this podcast. Mark, you made a good point on text. I can't even really refute it. I believe you said it was sometimes the quarterback's about what's in your heart, and Derek Carr, for whatever reason, he just doesn't light a fire. But I think he's just so much better than he gets credit for, and it's become one of those things. He's kind of got a little bit of the Andy Dalton thing going on where people almost don't want to see him succeed because they like keeping him in that box, that he's just this middle of the road guy. But I think with the right surroundings, the right coaching, the right pieces around him, he is a guy that absolutely can take a team into a deep playoff run, and they are on the right path right now.
I think you picked the perfect candidate for like a deep sports psychology pep talk, because I agree with much of what you're saying. I think when you see like the best of Derek Carr, that's when all these Raiders fans that have been, maybe for better or worse, backing him no matter what, come at you saying, this is what he is, this is what he is. My one thing I feel like in life, whenever you kind of start losing an argument, and I can think of times when I've in this house I've sort of said like, I should be respected more, I should be respected more, you need to be, giving me more respect. It's like, well, you've lost your argument if you need to voice that. And there's too many instances with Derek Carr where like you're telling us that you need to be respected more, but all you need to do is, why is Tom Brady on the cover of a newspaper? Because he doesn't walk around saying, I need to be respected more. He just says, everyone thinks I'm done. I'm going to go win another Super Bowl. And then I'm going to go down and to Tampa Bay when they think I'm done, and we'll see what he does there. Derek Carr, you're a good quarterback. Like, just go win games, and don't have us pointing to Raiders teams that fade down the stretch because you aren't aggressive enough, X, Y, and Z. People want to root for players that want to root for themselves. I don't want to hear anything more about the respect and all that business. Respect comes through what you do now.
Well,
Dan gave that pep talk to Derek Carr after the first quarter. That's what happened last night.
It took a little while to warm up, but once he did, that offense was tough to stop.
I'm thankful the pep talk's over. I haven't felt that uncomfortable at points since Derek Carr was on our show. And by the way, it was on the cover of the paper because the disrespect is coming from inside the building. Mark Davis is the one who literally on record said he wanted Tom Brady. So that is the disrespect. That is the person who built the stadium and then had Derek Carr at the unveiling of the stadium at the very same time that they were talking about bringing in Tom Brady. So you don't blame Derek Carr for taking that a little personally when that's your boss. But sometimes he puts it on the media. And I think it's been his coaches and his GM and his ownership which has fueled some of this disrespect.
You can't control that. I guess that's what I was getting at with the pep talk. Can't control any of that stuff, all the doubters, even if they are coming from the top of the ownership group in his own team. But if he plays well, maybe things will straighten themselves out and he'll get what he wants in the end, which is RESPECT. Okay, good pep talks, guys. Enjoyed it. Fun. Let's now spin forward to Thursday Night Football. In another world, Colleen would be hopping on her private jet tomorrow or tonight and heading to beautiful Jacksonville, Florida, Duval County, landing on a runway that was made especially for her.
Exactly. It's a red carpet runway.
But instead, you will be in Studio One at NFL Network headquarters in Culver City.
Just as good?
Yeah, just as good. Listen, it's good to have a job right now. Dolphins at Jaguars. Dolphins 0-2. Jaguars 1-1. Out with, in all seriousness, Colleen does great work in terms of her research, and she knows her stuff. So, Colleen, I'm sure you've been studying these teams. What are some kind of early thoughts you have? We'll start with the Jaguars.
All right, so obviously Gardner Minshew here. Outside of those 2 interceptions that he had last week, Minshew, he looked pretty good. 3 touchdowns. He spread the ball around to 8 different receivers. So this has been a really good first 2 weeks for him. And now this week, going up against a Dolphins secondary that probably won't have Byron Jones because of that Achilles and groin injury. It's a short week. I wouldn't expect him to be out there. And you saw how much that affected the game. They lost Byron Jones on the first series last week. So not having him out there is going to be a big, big deal. I also really like on the side of the Jags, their undrafted rookie, their running back, James Robinson. He looked really good in that game. 16 for 102 and the touchdown. So they're like, Leonard Fournette, no problem, bye. But I think that, listen, the Jags run defense, they were able to sort of limit Derrick Henry too. I mean, 25 carries, 84 yards. So they did a pretty good job. And then, yeah, I mean, on the Dolphins side of things, Ryan Fitzpatrick, I mean, he looked better last week, but the Bills were also missing 2 of their top linebackers. So obviously he'll be able to find some good matchups in that Jags secondary, but Mike Gesicki is the guy that I'm looking forward to seeing. He had a huge game against Buffalo, 8 for 130. He has 6 touchdowns in his last 8 games. So those are just a couple things I have my eye on.
Add him to the Freedom from Adam Gase list.
Yes, exactly. Also, I'm thinking about wearing a Python jacket because it's an all Florida edition for TNF. So some type of like animal print.
I'm looking forward to that as well. Mark, you are, I thought when you said you were actually in love with the person for the pep talk, you were going down Minchu Alley. This has been something you've been excited about him forever. I'm sure you are clicking your heels watching film of Minchu right now. Minchu.
Yeah, I don't know about the Chris Berman version of the name, but I see a starter. Like I feel like Minshew is probably, he was helped last year by becoming a sensation because of his mullet and the mustache and like the prancing around in a half shirt business. But what kind? There we go. I feel like he did it once. I didn't know if we needed it week after week. He did that 4 or 5 times last night too. It's like we get it. Nice
Didn't
joke,
need it.
but didn't need it. Minshew to me is a starting quarterback who probably is not getting the. I'm just going to ignore it at this point. Is not going to get the credit he deserves for the work he puts in, and it's even on this show. This is right here. It's happening because there is this reluctance to accept that Gardner Minshew has outplayed Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and not Josh Allen at this point, but a bunch of other quarterbacks that are get a lot of rope. A lot of rope because of where they were drafted, and everyone wants Minshew out of the picture, and they don't have a quarterback problem right now. And the one thing, and Colleen, I love that you mentioned Jones being out because his fill-in, Noah Igbanayi, a rookie, came in, and Brian Daboll wisely targeted that safety 11 times for 145 yards and 2 touchdowns. And you are playing another aggressive passing game with the Jaguars. I love Minshew taking some shots in this game. The interceptions were not flagrant idiot throws. There was one overthrow that got tipped. That was the first one.
That was the receiver's fault even. That receiver jumped on
I'm
the
just
play.
saying he's not throwing.
He's
not. You can't point, like, interceptions are interceptions, but they are not Minshew not seeing the field. I think he sees the field really well, and with his legs, there are 5 or 6 plays a game where he creates something out of nothing, but then continues to look at the field. So I am arrow up on this guy, and it's not because of the persona, it's because of the player.
Well, yeah, he's making the second-year leap like Kyler is. I mean, I think you're losing the doubters on this show. Maybe Dan a little bit, but I spent.
I mean, I specifically stated last Thursday that
Right.
I was.
You did, Dan. You did.
I spent all of
putting you on
Sunday's show saying I love what I've seen out of him. I think he's a different quarterback now. I think these two games he has been like a top 10 quarterback to start the season, not just a decent starter.
And it's fair to say, Greg, just to jump in for 1 second, that what we're seeing now. And you already kind of made the point that he's made the leap. That wasn't what he was last year.
He was at times, though. He was at times.
My kind of feelings about him was that he was a bit of a media creation that was a little hot and cold as a quarterback and not necessarily a guy to be like, oh, yeah, he's a guy that should be starting 16 games. I don't feel the same way through 2 games so far this year. He just appears different.
I hear you, Dan. He had a couple bad quarters and games last year and on a bad offense where Nick Foles also completely was flummoxed. But Minchu, what he's showing this year, he showed this last year,
right?
Just understandably not consistently. But there's nothing that he's just doing now that he wasn't doing a year ago. It's from wire to wire in these 2 games.
Right. He showed flashes early. When he came back in for Foles at the end of the year, he looked like a rookie the last 5-6 games of the year. But Jay Gruden's such a perfect combination for him. 8 guys on their team caught 3 passes last week. So they have a lot of guys. The way Chenault moves is really exciting. The way James Robinson moves, we know Chark is a big-time player. Like, they're getting Conley involved. They can spread it around. To me, these two teams are very different in that their defenses are probably going to be garbage this season, like a bottom 6 or 7 defense. I don't think there's going to be a lot of stops. Neither team has a pass rush. I think the quarterbacks are kind of similar. I actually think Fitzpatrick's played fairly well if you watch how bad his pass protection has been the first 2 games. Even against the Patriots, he's making tough throws because that's all there is to make, and he's under pressure. He just has a lot less around him. So in a game that you kind of like the offenses better than the defenses, I think Gardner's got more help and they get a win.
The defense of the Dolphins is something to keep an eye on here because, yes, Byron Jones leaving left a huge hole in that secondary. And last year was all about the big tank with the Dolphins. And the thought was you get all these first-round picks, you spend all this money, things will be better. But right now the defense remains, maybe not at the levels they were at the beginning of last season, but still a major problem. They need to have growth, and that is Brian Flores' land. So he needs to get that in those affairs in order.
They also have a coordinator that was out of the league since 2012. I feel like that's a little under the radar. And if you look at like the resume of his assistants on that offensive side of the ball, there's just been they probably
Chan
have
Gailey,
as light Chan Gailey. Yes, he has not been in the NFL since 2012. Going against a guy Gruden who's been there the whole time and is ready. And if you look at kind of the resumes of all his offensive assistants, it's not a lot of guys that are going to bowl you over with track records of success. And so without an off season, you're coming back into it's just a lot to ask for this Dolphins team.
This is set up really well, Mark and Colleen, because you want, of course, you want Minchu post game for that conversation after he has a big day, and he's such a charismatic guy that you want that, and I think it's all set up there where. Playing against this Dolphins team, especially with the secondary banged up, I think he's going to have another nice game, and it's going to be a huge story on Friday and with you and Michael Irvin and the gang on Thursday night.
Yeah, we got to talk to Minchu last year on Thursday Night Football, and we had his entire family up on the set after he got that win. But I think that, it obviously favors, I think, a little bit the Jags here because of Byron Jones being out, but also the fact that they'll be able to run the ball too. The Dolphins right now are allowing 5 yards per carry through 2 games. I feel like they really need Kyle Van Noy to kind of step up a little bit too. They need everybody to step up.
Almost had a pick 6 against Josh Allen, and it went through his hands. That would have changed that game.
Yeah, so maybe a little bit more from him too.
You need Minchu because he needs to make up for Baker's performance in the interview last week. Baker's in this I'm winning in silence. I'm going out of my way to be boring. I was watching you do the interview where it's like you guys are trying to pull something from him. You got Michael Irvin trying to pull something from him, and he's just going out of it. And it's fine if that's who you really are. Like when, I'm trying to think of a quarterback
Walk in
who's just
silence.
flat. When Alex Smith is giving you pretty like blah answers, that's just who Alex Smith is, I
Sure.
think, in interviews. But Baker, like, you can tell he's trying to muzzle himself, and that's annoying.
Like Colleen was cutting a cake last time while
I
talking about
know!
Carlos Hyde. He has to be who he is. We talked about that on the show too. Like you can't, because here's where all the strategy breaks down. I'm operating in silence, like I'm never going to speak, but these progressive ads have come back for the second year, and every time one of those comes on, I feel like a brick is being dropped on my head from the 18th story of a building. Like, why did these come back?
It's just
For
not
for
one.
either
It's just
side.
not one ad either. It is a whole campaign with layered advertising. And you're right. It does kind of jump out at you that he's saying he's silent. Then every commercial break, all you hear is him talking. But you know what? Let's not talk about the Browns right now. Let's focus on the Jags and Dolphins and check it out with Colleen Wolfe and the gang on Thursday night. And Colleen, listen, you've said it all.
I did.
We'd love to have you back anytime we can. You're sitting in the West chair. It's never the same without West, but when you could like slide in Colleen like 1986 Bill Walton on the Celtics, I mean, you cannot do any better for a 6 man off the bench than Connie Fox. So thank you for joining us.
Well, it was great, as it always is. Great to see you guys. Super fun. And maybe next time I'll like hang something on my wall behind me.
Yeah, let's just put a little bit more
Yeah.
effort into the background.
There's
I
just
also
an
think
apron.
Colleen and what's his name from the Celtics '86 were in a similar frame of mind last night. If you want to scan the
Right.
tweets that were
Some
happening during
different
Monday Night
extra,
Football,
very
Bill
similar
Walton.
extracurricular activities. Absolutely.
A lot of
Listen,
tie-dye.
I was enjoying myself, and looking
As
back
you
on
should.
what I tweeted last night, maybe I should have not been on Twitter. That's all.
Nobody
I
going
know
to
the
judge
feeling.
you, Connie Fox. Nobody in this room anyway.